the Jewish Channel's Week in Review, defying the pundits in Israel's elections, adapting one of the great works of Jewish literature for the stage, and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello, and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. Shocking results in the Israeli elections Tuesday have turned political expectations on their head. Defying even the most recent polls was the meteoric rise of former Israeli TV news anchor Yair Lapid, whose Yesh Atid party rocketed upward to receive the second most votes on Tuesday. Matching his rise were the falling numbers for the combined party of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with his recent foreign minister Avigdor Lieberman and that of the right-wing upstart Naftali Bennett. The Likud Beitenu of Netanyahu and Lieberman still easily garnered the most votes, but far fewer than their parties did in 2009 elections, and fewer than even recent polls had suggested was likely. Bennett's Habayit HaYehudi party dropped to a tie for fourth place, where polls had suggested he could threaten for the second position. The election results have thoroughly surprised seemingly every pundit and observer, including us here at TJC. The polls simply didn't predict this large a shift from the parties perceived as right-wing to the parties perceived as center-left. Indeed, when you tally them up, there are essentially half the Knesset seats for that perceived center-left bloc and half for the perceived right-wing bloc. Here's how the two sides stack up. On the perceived right, Likud Beitenu with 31 seats and Habayit HaYehudi with 11 are combined with the ultra-Orthodox Shas and United Torah Judaism with 11 and 7 respectively to make 60. On the perceived center-left, Yesh Atid with 19, Labor with 15, and the Tzipi Livni-led Hatnuah party and the left-wing Meretz party with 6 apiece, plus 2 seats for Kadima, can combine with the 12 seats won by Arab parties to make 60. But the election results are actually a bit worse for that perceived right-wing bloc because of the less traditional allies that comprise each of those blocs. When you strip out the ultra-Orthodox parties from the perceived right-wing bloc and the Arab parties from the perceived left-wing bloc, you get a clear voter preference for the latter with 46 seats, surpassing the Likud Beitenu and Habayit HaYehudi group garnering only 42 seats. That reveals just how much that perceived right-wing bloc has diminished in the eyes of the Israeli electorate. As election day wore on and it became increasingly clear that a very high turnout was favoring the opposition, Netanyahu took to Facebook, speaking of the sakana, or danger, that Likud could face if more of his voters didn't get to the polls. He even penned a handwritten note that he posted, declaring, "My friends on Facebook, I beseech you, go to vote Likud. Only a large Likud vote can ensure a strong Israel." These created an image to outsiders of an increasingly desperate Netanyahu and desperation for that perceived right-wing bloc overall, which was matched when Bennett disappointed at the election. But we are using the qualifier perceived here to describe both blocs with good reason. The big surprise winner in this election, Yair Lapid of Yesh Atid, has surprisingly gotten through this past year without revealing very much of his actual politics or policies. Tzipi Livni, meanwhile, once succeeded Ehud Olmert as acting prime minister while heading the Kadima party that had been founded by Ariel Sharon, and yet she's considered part of the center-left bloc. And that's why the most likely coalition government to result from this election would see a lot more partnership between these perceived blocs than within them. Combining Netanyahu, Lieberman, Lapid, Bennett, and Livni creates a solid governing coalition of 68 seats. Adding in the more willing to compromise of the ultra-Orthodox parties Shas with 11 seats, and then Kadima with 2, would create a coalition in which different kinds of compromises could be made on different kinds of issues without the entire government falling. What this means for Israel going forward is likely more of the same regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, while at the same time creating an opening for some reform on issues concerning the ultra-Orthodox, women's equality, and respect and inclusion of a diverse array of Jews where religion intersects with the state. Netanyahu, speaking after initial exit polling results came in, said, "We must form the broadest coalition possible. I started working on this tonight." That latter comment referred to phone calls with other party leaders. His first call reportedly was to Lapid. Netanyahu declared that he believes Israelis have given him a clear mandate to be prime minister and to govern amid the other electoral confusion. He also stated 5 priorities he sees for the coming coalition, starting with the Iranian nuclear development program, moving on to economic policies, and then listing third a, quote, responsible peace. Fourth on the list was that ultra-Orthodox hot button of increasing equality in army and national service. Fifth on the list was reducing the cost of living in Israel. And while American Jews are wondering exactly what values the coming government will have, it's clear that some of those values will be determined by an actual American-born and raised Jew. Dov Lipman, a rabbi and leader in the push against the ultra-Orthodox intimidation in Beit Shemesh in recent years, made Aliyah after serving as a Jewish educator in Maryland. He had what many considered an unrealistic chance of breaking into the Knesset, being 16th on the list of Lapid's Yesh Atid party. But with that party now winning a surprising 19 seats, he'll be the only so-called Anglo serving in the Knesset this time. Speaking of what happens when Anglos and native Israelis meet during election time, the Israeli consulate in New York held a celebration of democracy party as results were coming in on Tuesday, and Meredith Gansman was there.
It's election day in Israel, and as the numbers come in, I'm coming to you from the Israel consulate in New York with all the results. 31 and 19, the number of Knesset seats the two now leading parties, Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud Yisrael Beitenu and Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid, won in Israel's election, which Baruch College's Dr. Dov Waxman attributed to the force of personality.
The party leaders who did best, Netanyahu and Yair Lapid, were people who campaigned without really on any particular issue. There was no dominant theme, and really they were pretty ambiguous about what they actually wanted to do. So I think it shows in those cases the power of their personalities, their personal appeal over their particular agenda that they wanted to carry out. Parties that did have a specific agenda, particularly Zippy Livni's party, Hatnua, performed pretty badly.
Consul General Ido Aharoni provided inside perspective on the movement in Israel's political center.
There's a big overlap of people that define themselves as center. I think probably a big chunk of the Israeli constituency would self-describe as center or centrist. And so within that overlap, I think most of the action took place.
According to Aharoni, political agendas focusing more on social issues than on the geopolitics of the Middle East conflict led to the surprising changes in party power.
The biggest surprise is the fact that parties that did not specifically put on top of their agenda the Israeli-Palestinian conflict did well.
And at an event all about celebrating democracy, Aharoni concluded by praising the average Israeli voter.
The Israeli voter is very knowledgeable. I think Israelis in general are very, very active and vibrant political creatures. In many ways, they know a lot about politics, they follow and they monitor the situation very closely.
Now those elected convene to decide how best to represent the interest of all those Israeli voters. From the Israel consulate in New York for the Jewish Channel, I'm Meredith Gansman.
Thank you, Meredith. The Jewish literature classic My Name is Asher Lev by Chaim Potok is being adapted for the stage. Meredith Gansman also has that story.
To create art or to keep faith. That's the theme of the new off-Broadway play, My Name is Asher Lev. And it brings to question, what price would you pay to follow your passion?
Growing up, and since my childhood, I've been entirely supported to follow the path that I have followed.
Ari Brand plays the title character in My Name is Asher Lev, the theatrical telling of the book by Chaim Potok.
It's a fascinating thing to work from a text that's so important to so many people. I mean, the book, I know, was required reading for a lot of people growing up. It was a book that touched many, many lives in many different demographics. It's a big responsibility, I think, to be able to tell this story accurately and with the same sense of urgency that the book highlighted in so many people growing up.
It's a story of choosing between being accepted by family and community and being fulfilled by pursuing a life as an artist, a conflict Brand never knew. However, the character Asher, a gifted painter, is not so lucky. Growing up in Brooklyn's Chabad Lubavitch Hasidim, and with a strict father who is a leader of that community, there is no place for Asher's artistic passion.
Deeper down, and in broader strokes, the story is about family, and it's about fathers and sons, and mothers and fathers, and when what you do and what you need to do is in conflict with the people who are nurturing you and bringing you up.
To hear more from My Name is Asher Lev's Ari Brand, tune in to the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable. Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 291, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and now on Comcast Cable in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.